Hello, my name is Robert Waters, and I'll be reading from my latest novella, Eyes of the Wolf, Volume 9 in the Systema Paradoxa series, published by eSpec Books. Back cover. There are creatures lurking in our world, obscure creatures long relegated to myth and legend. They have been sighted by a lucky or unlucky few. Some have even been photographed, but their existence remains unproven and unrecognized by the scientific community. These creatures, long thought gone, have somehow survived. Creatures from our nightmares hunting the dark places. They swim in our lakes and bays. They soar the night skies. They hunt in the woods. Some are from our past, and some from other worlds, and others that have always been with us, watching us, fearing us, hunting us. These are the cryptids. The Systema Paradoxa tells their tales. When a sudden trail of death and desolation sweeps through South and Central Texas, elements of the case trigger an alert with a division of the FBI that tracks possible supernatural influence. Agent Chamalis Burton, a specialist in the cryptids of the Americas, has a history of vanquishing such monstrous creatures. When she is assigned the case, she scrambles to find answers before the situation worsens. Evidence begins to suggest an evil that has festered for centuries. An evil that now rises to reclaim its power. An evil that rests in the soulless eyes of a wolf. Prologue. El Salvador, 1845. The old magician watched the two boys draw closer to his home as the hot sun began to set. Most odd, he thought, because it had been years since anyone as young and as vibrant as these two had tried to find him, and so far off the natural path. He could only surmise that they were trying to seek him out. For what purpose he did not know, but he would learn soon enough. He stepped through the drape of bleached bird and rodent skulls stitched together with dried pig sinew and greeted them warmly. He lifted his equally dry arm, a narrow tree branch of sagging black skin, and reached out to them with long fingers knotted and twisted by years of systematic abuse at the hands of his master. That was many years ago when he had been a slave in Belize, but the scars from that time still lingered in his body, mind, and spirit. "I greet you," he said, his voice a mix of pebbles and uncontrollable phlegm. "I am Zaka, and I welcome you to my home." Zaka could see that the boys were young, 16 or 17 at most. They were not African like him, but rather a mixture of Spanish blood and either Zinca or Aguilac, based on their features. They were streaked with soot and greasy grime, far darker than their skin. Their clothing was dirty, worn, and threadbare. A slight sparkling gold dust covered them from head to toe. The gold dust gave them an air of importance, but the old magician knew the truth. They were just simple boys far from home, and perhaps lost. "Hola," the one closest to the magician said. "I am Miguel. This is my brother Asai. We are from the gold mines south. We are on our way home to celebrate our sister's marriage, but we were robbed of our food and mule as we traveled. We have a long way to go, and we are tired and hungry. We were wondering if—" The boy paused, looking at his brother for support. Asai finished. "We were wondering if you could give us food and a place to sleep for the night." "Really?" Zaka said, surprised and more than a little impressed by these brave young men who would dare approach his home. "Do you know who I am? What I am?" Miguel nodded and swallowed. Zaka could hear and see the boy's throat move despite his weak vision and the cataract clouding his left eye. "We have heard rumors, yes. You are a magician, they say, and you make fetishes and love potions and boil frogs and lizards and rats to make potions and raise the dead," Asai erupted, "and poisons to subdue or kill the wicked." Now, Zaka said, moving his hands as if he were trying to stifle a growing argument. "Those are just silly, childish rumors perpetuated by the Spanish and their European masters to discredit and embarrass me. Yes, I do make potions and fetishes, but not just for love or death or other trivial matters. Orisha of the Oruba charges me to help people like you, like me, travel through their life free from harm, from persecution." He motioned to the thick forest around him, glorifying in its splendor. "I can protect you as you walk through these forests from the mines to your home, or to anywhere you wish to go. I can provide you amulets that will protect you as you make your way through life, forever and for all time, but I do require payment." "We don't have any money," Asai said, his expression turning foul. "We just told you we were robbed." "Asai," Miguel barked, then shied away at his brother's glare. "Show some manners, please." "But he wants us to pay, and we—" "I did not say you had to pay with coins," the old magician said. I said merely that you had to pay. Payment can come in many forms. The brothers waited, and Zaka continued, I will give you food and rest. I will give you two amulets to protect you in your travels if you agree to one simple task. The boy looked at each other, then nodded. I am old, you see, the magician chuckled. These days I have barely enough strength to lift a feather, but I require wood for my fireplace. If you agree to gather wood for me before you leave in the morning, I will humbly admit you into my home and allow you to avail yourself of my hospitality. Do you agree? There was a long pause. Miguel and Asai looked at each other. Very well, Miguel said finally. We agree. It is very important that you understand this agreement and keep it. I will take your word as your bond. If you violate my trust, we agree. Asai barked. You have my word. Zaka nodded. Very well. Please come in. So they entered the magician's home, carefully navigating through a jungle of hanging bones and drying red peppers, onions and roots, and strings of beads that appeared to have been dipped in blood, and small feather fetishes with the dry, feathery faces of rats and squirrels. At the center of the small house stood a table. There was a loaf of brown bread there twisted in knots, and the brothers sat and ate greedily. To wash it down, Zaka gave him bowls of thick, soupy wine. The boys ate and drank far into the night, and as they did so, Zaka made sure he let the middle finger of his right hand draw across the part of their skin as he served them food and drink. From this, he was able to divine each boy's true nature. Miguel was a relatively good boy, well-mannered, courteous. He was younger than Asai by 2 years. He was easy to manipulate emotionally, and sometimes his older brother took advantage. Asai was brash, bold, prone to anger, and not always trustworthy. They each had warm feelings for the other, though it was difficult to express such emotions openly. Asai especially, for he was the oldest and destined to be the man of the house one day. It would not do to show outward weakness, for doing so allowed others to take advantage. Interesting, Zaka thought as the evening's conversation and feasting came to a close. Let's play a game. Miguel rose to go outside and gather the firewood as promised. Zaka waved him off. Please, it is late, and there are beasts in the forest that will make a meal out of you at this hour. Come, rest by the fire, and in the morning you can fulfill your promise. The boys did as Zaka said. They took comfortable places by the fire and quickly fell asleep. As the boys slept, Zaka placed the rest of his bread and wine on the table. He then quickly made them 2 amulets from copper infused with small bones from the Todi Matmat. Then he, too, fell asleep. In the morning he heard voices. Asai's first, in a harsh whisper. Come on, grab the food, and let's go. Then Miguel. What about the amulets? Forget them. Just get the food and come on. We promised to get him wood for... Forget the old man. He's crazy, senile. He won't be able to catch us anyway. Come on. Miguel gave in to his brother, as Zaka had expected, though that saddened him. He had hoped that Miguel would finally show strength and stand up for himself, stand up for what was right, to make the promise that he and his brother had made. Zaka kept his eyes shut, however, until Miguel grabbed the food with a deep sigh and followed his brother out of the house. Zaka rose. He looked at his table. The food was gone, but the amulets remained. He looked at his withered pile of firewood. No resupply. He walked outside and saw the boys trotting down the path in the rising glow of the sun, both laughing. He shook his head. He closed his eyes and raised his right arm, and through his pebbled, watery voice said, I curse you both for your discourtesy. I condemn you both for stealing, for lying, for breaking your promise. I curse you, Asai, for your blatant disrespect and evil tendencies. I curse you, Miguel, poor young Miguel, for your lack of courage. I pray that in time you will both find a better path on which to walk. But until that day, may you walk this earth in fear and pain, in confusion and sorrow. I curse you in the name of Orisha. The brothers halted immediately. Dropping their stolen food, they fell to the ground screaming. Then they began to change. Their limbs were replaced by long, gray and black furred legs like a wolf, but instead of clawed and large paws at the ends, they grew hooves like a goat. The flesh of their chests and stomachs peeled off in chunks of bloody skin and were replaced by thick canine fur and muscle. Their necks grew longer, stronger. Their faces bulged into muzzles filled with sharp yellow-white fangs. Tiny horns grew on the top of their heads. The change took only a few minutes, and at the end terrified howls replaced their human screams and pleas for mercy, echoing in the rising sunlight. Then the transformation ended. They sniffed and scraped at the thick, sticky remains of their human bodies littering the path. They seemed confused. Turning to face Zaka in their wolf-goat forms, they howled in such a way as to frighten even him. He braced for an assault. Instead, they growled and scratched at the path as if charging, and then they bolted away, off the path and into the deep, dark forest. They were gone, and the old magician waited until their howls dispersed with distance. Zaka breathed a sigh of relief. He went back into his house, grabbed his walking cane and broom and broad-brimmed hat, and carefully walked down the path to retrieve his discarded food. He never saw the two boys again. The end.